Okay, July 23rd, 2024. Now, this video is mainly for adoptees who are interested in what happens when you were adopted and you search for your birth mother and you find out she was adopted too, and she didn't want to know anything about her parents. So what happened with me was, when I found my birth mother, I also found a half-sister. Anyway, a decade or so ago, my half-sister, who I haven't spoken to in years, but we got close enough, and she is a really good researcher, and so I am recording research that she did tracing our birth mother's lineage. Okay, so why this is interesting is only because, first of all, the fact that she found out these things. Second of all, as I'm going to highlight some of this stuff, is that I had a genetic relative on my mother's side, and interesting things happened with her in terms of names that are in my mother's lineage. And thinking about this record keeping going back generations, it's quite interesting that it turns out that my bloodlines, I found out a lot of my bloodlines. In fact, this would be, or actually my sister did, with particular last names and histories, and I'm recording this because I have them on paper, which is fine, but hey, let's put it online. And it won't really be a matter to too many people, except just to see how interesting it is when somebody researches really well. But what I want to read first is going to be, okay, my birth mother's name is Julia, and her, I think she's still alive even, and I met her twice, and everything like that. So, and she didn't mind that my sister and I were doing this research together through Ancestry and a few other things. So she was kind of in the background. Well, anyway, I don't want to talk about her personally. But my sister found a very interesting thing, because our birth mother's mother died in 1991, the year after I left the Bay Area. She was living there. Now, our birth mother's mother had, hang on a sec, our birth mother's mother, it's really confusing, and it's not going to matter to the public. Frances Cagle. So I have a grandmother with the last name of Cagle, and then this name Matot, and I could tell you how I think we found a Russian Matesky line, and we contacted Mike Matesky. The coincidences are so profound, but he came from sort of a high-class musical family, Russian, and then when we contacted him, he was going to go ask his grandmother stuff. So anyway, in my background, on my mother's side, there's a Matesky family. And all of these people settled in LA area. But the article I wanted to read today was about Velma Matot, who was born in, I guess, 1926. So I have this last name Matot in my background. Now, you can imagine that if there's secret records kept, and if my adoption, perhaps Vista Del Mar and the agencies and the attorney and everything had this information around the time that I was born. You know what I mean? Like, someone else had all this information too, so that my birth and whatever I was involved with in the secret whatever, and then my placement in a middle-class stable Jewish family rather than some weird-ass orphanage, low-class orphanage. You know what I mean? Like, there's some interesting connected bloodlines back here on my birth mother's side, who had no idea about this because she was not told she was adopted. She accidentally found out when she was 19, right when she was pregnant with me, is when she found out she was adopted. Now, all you adoptees know how fucked up that is. If you didn't know at all, and then suddenly you're told that your Hungarian mom and dad and whatnot fucking adopted you and you didn't know. I knew my whole life. All right, but let me read this interesting thing. Velma married, okay, 1953, she was a resident of Oakland, California. A plane crashed en route from Roswell. Okay, so I want to read this because my sister looked that up. So a great aunt of mine, it looks like, which would have been Julie's aunt if she would have stayed with her birth parents. It's very confusing. Was in a plane crash, but this is what was so interesting, because my sister, in terms of like UFO secret projects and stuff, my sister kind of, we were both into that. Okay. So this happened in 1953. I'm going to just put the camera on this junk over here, just for the heck of it, in case somebody goes, hey, guess what? I'm related to you. My name is... Yeah. Look at the birthdays. Oh my god. Yeah. So anyway, let me just show you, because this is like I was freaking taking notes back then. My sister, she had really good research. Hey Nikki, if you listen to this, we had a little row a few years ago. No one talks to anybody. Okay. So, Alvarado, California, airline plunges into the field, March 1953. Okay. Clues to East Bay plane fall missing. Investigators failed today to turn up a single clue as to the cause of the disastrous crash last night of a Transocean Airlines DC-4 in a muddy Alvarado barley field. 30, listen to this one, 30, as in 30, Air Force men and a crew of 5, including 2 stewardesses, Velma was one of the stewardesses, died as the plane dropped out of the overcast and burned in the level field. An exhaustive investigation was being organized this afternoon, but cursory examination of the scene today produced nothing that would shed light on the accident, according to Samuel Wilson, Executive Vice President of Transocean. The pilot of the plane was Transocean's chief pilot, and Wilson said he would, quote, almost rule out the possibility of pilot error. Almost rule out the possibility of pilot error. He was not only our chief pilot, but our best pilot, Wilson said. The tragic crash came when the plane was less than 12 miles from a landing at Oakland Airport, which is where I lost my birth mother's photos, by the way. Remember that story I told you? And only 2 minutes after the pilot had made normal radio contact with the Civil Aeronautics Administration control tower without reporting trouble. The 4-engine airliner arriving from Walker Air Force Base at Roswell, New Mexico, en route to Guam. Okay, so the plane was arriving from Walker Air Force Base at Roswell, New Mexico, en route to Guam in 1953. Was on the beam, quote, the word beam is in quote, for its instrument approach to Oakland Airport when, according to eyewitnesses, it went into a steep left bank, dropped to earth, and cartwheeled and burst into flames. The FBI said in San Francisco that it was maintaining contact with investigators on the scene for any evidence of sabotage, but that as yet there was no hint of sabotage, like they're going to tell you. The 30 dead airmen were maintenance specialists of the 509th Bomb Wing assigned to Guam after completing training at the Roswell field. All right, so this goes into the Roswell field, 1953. So learning this about my genetics was what I'm talking about when, like people say, do you have any military in your background? They ask you normal people that. I did not until now this comes up. Okay, so isn't that interesting? This family wasn't just sitting in the backyard cooking barbecues. They were like in the military. Okay, The 30 dead airmen were maintenance, but 30 dead airmen had come from Roswell. Okay, wait, let me see, it says the better part. The 30 dead airmen were maintenance specialists of the 509th Bomb Wing, assigned to Guam after completing training at the Roswell field. Now, I'm not mentioning that my adoptive father, named Melvin, was in the military right at this time, 1953. Dad. He was stationed at Marshall Island. It's too bad he's not alive. I would have found that more. But isn't that interesting? The same year that this birth family of mine gets in this thing, I get adopted into, okay, because, you know, we're all in the same ballpark. Okay, the crash scene is about 4 miles from where a United Airlines DC-68 crashed on August 24, 1951, killing 50 persons in the state's worst air disaster. Investigation of the cause was being made today by Earl Mitchell, chief of the Oakland Office of Civil Aeronautics Board, assisted by experts from Southern California and officials of Oakland-based company. The plane hit a fourth of a mile northeast of the intersection of Algier Road and Whipple Road on the ranch operated by Frank and Rick Andrada. Okay, plane was on lease. The Transocean Airlines said the Douglas-built DC-4 was leased from the Air Force and operated by Transocean under contract to the Military Air Transport Service. It left Roswell. Okay, so this thing was carrying all these military personnel leaving Roswell, right? I'm just saying. About 11:15 a.m. yesterday and began flying in instrument weather at Winslow, Arizona. Transocean said the plane was making an instrument approach to the airport after being held over the field for an hour due to weather and traffic conditions. Tower control of the plane was transferred from the Air Route Traffic Control Center at 6:19 p.m. The plane then was at 8,000 feet in the vicinity of the Newark radio beacon. At 6:27, the pilot was given permission to descend to 3,500 feet in the holding altitude over Newark. At 6:15, the pilot reported he was leaving Newark on his approach. Then, disaster. 2 minutes later, the plane suddenly dropped into the muddy field. Apparently, it hit first on the left wing, then the nose, it dropped back upright, then there was okay, it goes describing it. Bodies, many with their clothes burned off. Listen to this while they describe the shit. Bodies, many with their clothes burned off, torn, twisted pieces of debris, and personal belongings from the baggage were scattered over 350 yards. Both wings were torn off. One of the 4 engines was thrown 100 feet, one section of the dual-wheel landing gear over 80 feet. Robert Lemos of 26 Creek Road said he was driving on Whipple Road when he saw the plane. Okay, so there's witnesses. Okay, so anyway, the whole point being, Velma, my sister, found out, thanks to computers. And by the way, she's had a lifelong job as some kind of assistant to some kind of guy at UCLA. So my birth sister is also raised in UCLA. I was raised in UCLA at the doctor's. All right, so anyway. See, it's really fun to know details because then you find out which individuals might have been included in some of these, you know, really big operations, and why I'm here today talking about it. Okay, so my sister sent me, she typed out, okay, she was doing all the main research and telling me stuff, and then I was doing some phone calls and everything. And this all occurred in 2010, so this is when we were doing all this in 2010. And again, I'm recording it just for my own self in case the papers disappear. And now the artificial intelligent YouTube has my voice saying it. Okay. So Nikki, my sister, is saying that it turns out that Mom's, our birth mother, the one she grew up with and I didn't, it turns out that Mom's great-great-grandfather, Virgil Heron, Heroon. So for anybody, you know, that thinks I shouldn't know the names of people in my heritage, too bad I already do. So anyway, Virgil Heron, David Heron, born 1804 in Georgia, and Sarah Elizabeth Jett. It's so funny because I hardly remember this letter. And there's other letters somewhere else. It also turns out that the Jetts of Virginia all hail from 2 original patriarchs heavily involved in pre-post-Revolutionary War activity and who are also ancestors of William Stokes Jett, aka Willie Jett, who was arrested for indirectly but deliberately aiding and abetting John Wilkes Booth, and was thereafter banished from Virginia in disgrace. Now, this is my sister finding this out, you know. And these are ancestors of what would be my mother's side, which would be me. Okay, Sarah Elizabeth's father was Francis Jett, but there were multiple cousins by this name born in close proximity. I have to read this way, sorry you guys. Look at that. Okay. Two original packages involved in pre-post-revolutionary war activity. Okay, Sarah Elizabeth's father was Francis Jett, and there were multiple cousins by this name born in close proximity, and the lines are very confusing, and I was loath to have to sort out all that, so I looked around, and sure enough, there was a book written back in the 1970s about the Jett and allied families, like the W and then blank, 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 but it's out of print. So I looked around some more, she says, and unfortunately, I discovered online that there is a genealogy center up in Santa Barbara that recently added a copy of this very book to their collection. So she's saying that there was a book written in the 70s about this family that I seem to be connected to, but it was out of print, but she found it at this special library in Santa Barbara. She drove up there. They recently added a copy of this very book to their collection. Needless to say, she says, needless to say, I'll be calling them to verify, and I'll be headed up there to have a look. It's my hope, she writes, that by establishing Sarah Jett's lineage, I could more easily track the Herons, who also have multiple cousins in the same names. Our Heron, Herron, lineage appears to date back to Ireland, and once confirmed, this would be so cool for Mom, because Julie, my birth mother, who didn't know anything about nothing until this, and her two daughters getting together and researching on her behalf, Julie's got this Russian Matesky background, and apparently this Herons, and my sister's saying that Mom would be excited to find out that by the Jetts and the Herons and all that, you know, so my sister, who was living with my mother during all this, my birth mother, sorry, was doing all this research and then telling her about it, and she's just kind of smiling and listening, you know, not very communicative. My birth mother, Julie, she would never, it was the weirdest, and I mean, if anybody was a clone, I'm sorry, it could have been her, because she had the strangest behavior after, when I first met my birth mother in 1983 at the restaurant. We had a great time. When there was no one else but me and her, she was very open. But the next time I met her in the 2010-9 era, she wasn't home. I mean, she didn't, well, anyway, it's a long story. Not that it was sad, it was just interesting. It's my hope that by establishing Sarah Jett's lineage, okay, and then my sister's writing that she's upgraded her ancestry. And you know, the last time I talked to Nikki, she says, well, I'm going to print out this big family tree thing. And then a drama happened, and she got mad at me, and she said, if you don't come here and take care of your mother the way I think you should, you'll never hear from me again. So I haven't heard from her again. So I'm not talking about the fact that my sister entered Scientology at the age of 15. So when I ran away from home, she didn't know I existed. I didn't know she existed. When I left home when I was the age of 16, my sister was already in Scientology as a teenager. Isn't that freaking weird? In 1974. Isn't that weird? It's my hope by establishing it. So, you know, I got her, joined Scientology. She stayed in it until the year before Ron Hubbard died. When Ron Hubbard died, then my sister got out of it. She left Scientology. Another interesting fact is, fast forward, a step-cousin entered Scientology within the last 20 years. On my stepmother. Anyway, it's weird. It's fun to find all these connections. Okay, so the rest of this letter that I'm reading here goes, so our ancestry appears to be shaping up as rock-solid American dating back before the war for independence and ultimately Western Europe, while the Matesky lineage will only be several generations off the boat, as it were, and take us into the eastern side of Europe and perhaps equally substantive Judaic family line. So when the attorney told me, when I called up to ask about the documents about this other baby, you know, and the attorney said that little line about Darwin's theory of evolution being challenged, and he said you can have two birthdays. He also said in another clip that I recorded that, and he said to me, he was this 98-year-old man said, I'm an atheist by, whatever, he says, I'm an atheist, but by ethnic, I'm Jewish, he said, and so are you, he said to me real pointedly in that clip that I recorded on the phone. So apparently I do have what y'all might want to call Jewish blood. So when I was adopted into this Jewish family, even though, see, the Comanche part, this is what they did, because back in the 50s, it wasn't a good thing to have Indian blood. They were still weeding it all out. And in 1974, the law changed in California. I mentioned this in other videos, whereby if a woman had a baby with some Indian blood, that nowadays the agency is obliged to contact the tribe and offer the baby for adoption first to the tribe. Okay, so if I'd have been born in 74, 75, and my birth father, who has a Comanche grandfather, and all that, that would have gone into the thing, and they would have been obliged to call the Comanche tribe, and I could have gone in that direction. But in the 50s, they just nixed out everything about Melvin Dobro, the Comanche thing, and then assimilated me into my mother's bloodline, where the Jewish connection was and all this other shit. So you see how interesting it is that somebody somewhere keeps all these records. So I'm saying this especially because if and when a little bit later on I get SSP records, you know, like we found out all these things. Imagine if I just never searched and found my sister. Imagine if my sister never did this homework here. I wouldn't know shit about shit. And then I would be even more vulnerable to any kind of clandestine experience, you know, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't have known. And that's the thing, you know, I'm very, very, very lucky and fortunate to have found her. And while I'm at it, let me just do this 22 minutes. This is the weirdest thing, you guys. Okay. When my sister found out that we have a Matesky, related to Dr. Michael Matesky, this is the kind of coincidence that's freaky. Okay, so our birth mother, Julie, found out her mother's name was Mary Perry, and she gave birth to my birth mother by a man named Max Matesky. Okay, those are my blood grandparents, Mary Perry and Max Matesky. Okay, we found that out. So my sister starts looking into the Mateskys, right? Calling numbers. I did the same thing about the Matesky years ago, because I found this out years ago, so, or whatever it was. Anyway, I'm looking up Matesky here and there and everything. So, Russian, okay, check this one out. So, let me just repeat it again for my own sake. So, I have the bloodline of a grandfather named Max Matesky, period. Max Matesky. If I would have grown up with my birth mother, if my birth mother would have grown up with her birth family, she would have grown up with her dad, my grandfather named Max. Grandpa Max Matesky. That is my original lineage. It never happened because they sent me away and they sent her away. Why on earth would they have done that? Okay, but here's the weirdest freaking thing on the whole freaking planet. So we find this Max Matesky guy. He is a professional musician with a studio. Okay, oh my God, let me read this. When we found him, he had a music studio that even has a YouTube channel. Is it on here? And his music studio records young professional musicians, like on the piano. Okay. So this is my sister. But listen to this. At the time my sister found this Max Matesky, the name of his studio was SOTA. Oh, where is that? Oh, shoot. I've got to go into the other things to find it. This dude is in Bothell, Washington, with a professional music studio because he's a professional musician. The name at that time, because he changed it after we contacted him, the name at that time of his music studio was SOTA, S-O-T. I kid you not. I lived, when my son was born in 95, me and his dad, we had an art gallery in Eatonville, Washington, with a sign out in the front. SOTA Gord Art Gallery. State-of-the-art Gord Gallery. This Matesky also used the acronyms of SOTA and Bothell, which is north of Eatonville. So, I mean, come on. How does that happen? How does that fucking happen? I have the proof of that somewhere else. And allegedly, this guy is the son, this guy would be a relative of ours. And we contacted him. And my sister sent me copies every time. See, this is my sister's name. Sorry. I'm writing to you under the notion that you are likely related to Dr. Michael Matesky. Oh, wait, there was a son and everything. Anyway, it's complicated. But both my sister and I contacted this guy, who could very well be still a relative on my grandfather's side of me. And SOTA, state-of-the-art acronym, was used in his studio, which now he changed it to Opus. If you go on YouTube, it's Opus something or another. And you could see where he records on YouTube the recitals that his students do on the piano. Now listen here, see? Listen here, sorry. My birth mother, Julie, was a prodigy on the piano. At 6 years old in Hollywood, she was playing the piano. My sister gets born first. She don't got no ear for music, tin ear. I get born, and I'm the one that inherited the music skill, see? Isn't that fucking weird? So anyway, I'm just having to record all this because I wanted to do the airline thing, and then, you know, it's just on a video, so that's the only reason I'm doing it. And the Matesky's territory, they settled in Modesto. And let's see if there's anything else. 1944. In England. See, my sister found the house, the very house in L.A. where our birth mother was born, and she Google Earthed it and everything. Matot is another name in the lineage. Matot marries Judith in 1950. You know, this is all confusing to anybody, but I'm just showing you what research can do and what you can possibly find out. And here's Velma. These were all her sisters. Bernice, John, and Velma was the... And the other thing Nikki found out, Velma was one of the stewardesses on the plane that crashed, with all those 30 Air Force dudes in it. Okay? Who knows? Someone listening, you know, this might become relevant somewhere else down the line. And I also have this Kegel would be my great-grandmother in Colton, California. Okay. And Mary Perry from Michigan. So anyway, I don't know who that's interesting to, but at least, you know, I whipped out all these papers. I said, okay, the article was really the trippiest part because it was coming from Roswell. And where is the sentence that said it had classified information on it? It doesn't say it in this article, or I gotta go find the other page because it said that the cargo they were carrying had classified shit on it. I read that somewhere else, and now it doesn't seem to be in here. Anyway, I'm sure all you guys following this adoption train understand, you know, how exciting it is when you find out this shit. And I need to get more organized because the rest of the story's in the other folder somewhere. But anyway, as much as I don't want to relate to the Zionist Jewish element of the planet, I guess I have to admit I got Judaic family line. So, I guess I'm sort of a Jew. And now I'm going to call myself a Comanche Jew because, you know, they can't do that. They mix bloodlines and they don't fucking tell you. So it's like, I never been to a powwow. I don't go to Comanche. I called the Comanche headquarters in Texas like a year ago or two. And I said, hey, my birth father, Melvin Dobro, isn't on the tribal rolls that we know of, but do you know, are you looking to, you know, look up human beings that might be enough of your tribe, 1/8, and all this to include you in there. She said, oh, we have people calling every day to claim they're Comanches. So, you know what I mean? I've never gone on the Comanche trail and said, I'm Comanche, because unless you got proof, you look like a white person trying to be a fucking Indian. I'm sorry. That's what happens. The prejudice comes toward the half-breed. When Cher made that song, half-breed, da-da-da, I used to sit in the car when I was 10 or whatever, 12, 13, in the backseat of my mother's car, you know, all empathetic on the notion of the half-breed thing. I didn't even know yet I had a half-breed situation. But yes, that does happen. And again, if the law was in place to have contacted the Comanche tribe to maybe place me with somebody there who wanted me, no, they channeled me and my little baby body genetics DNA into the Jewish population. So no Indians allowed. You know what I mean? Serious. So, in fact, when my mother found out she was pregnant, right, and she went and told Melvin, I'm pregnant, she told me she says to me, you wouldn't like him, he wasn't very nice. They had an argument, and he hit her in the face, and he left. Now, the guy left. Why? Because she could have nailed him to, you know, be a responsible parent, but because he was Indian, even in the 50s in Hollywood, well, the thing about he rode in the rodeo and everything, he was born in Texas and everything, but now he's got a white girl pregnant. I saw a law in the books in LA that it was like Indians were worse than black people to get pregnant, to get a white girl pregnant. So he ran for his life, and he left. And then Crystal Water Charlie told me in the 80s, in my research, she said that, you know, the fact that he went back to Fortuna, she said, yeah, there's a lot of tribes up there. So he got out of Hollywood and went back up to Northern California. Have I gone to Fortuna, California? No, I haven't. But it could be there's some old man lying around. What am I, 67? The dude could still be alive. 67, 77, 87, 89. He'd be 92 years old right now. So where did Melvin Dobro go? What happened to him? Right? The father. He went back to Fortuna. He lived at 1726 Willow Drive. And in the 80s, I mentioned this in my other videos, I sent a registered letter, and I also sent a certified letter right after that asking if the current residents should have driven over there to knock on the door. I asked if the current residents knew anything about this dude, Melvin Dobro, who lived there, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I did this in the 80s, 20 years after he was there in 66. I know it's confusing. But I sent a registered letter, which means somebody signed for it. The certified letter was received. No reply. I sent a SASE for them to write back to me and say anything. Somebody received my request that I was looking for my, I don't know if I said father or what, but anyway, nothing got sent back to me. I gave him my phone number and everything. So whoever in that house at 1726 Willow Drive received my letter of request, who lived there 20 years earlier, got the letter and did not reply to me. Okay? So that made me even more thinking that my birth father, the Comanche guy, is kind of under some kind of thing. God knows what they used him for. Okay? And the other creepy thing about that, during that time, when I was researching where's Melvin Dobro, okay, I called the Salvation Army. They had a search database or some way to find people. And one day the phone rang at the house. I wasn't there. Lavelle, my partner, answered the phone. A man asked for me. And Lavelle told him I wasn't home and didn't ask for his phone number. He asked his name. The man said his name was, so he was asking for me. He said his name was, oh my God, now it's slipping me. The guy that played the Fugitive on the TV show The Fugitive. Oh shit, what's the actor's name? And it goes into the Mormons. I've heard that last name. Oh my God. Anyway, there was a show called The Fugitive on TV. The character's name that starred in that show, oh my God, isn't that weird? It's slipping my mind, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Just go on YouTube, look up The Fugitive, and you'll see. Well, anyway, that's the name the guy said he was on the message, and he hung up. And he never called back. So, in other words, I'm looking for my birth father, Melvin Dobro. I get a phone call. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. I should look it up right now. I get a phone call asking for me. The man said his name is blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, that's an interesting name. Where have I heard that before? And that's where I heard it from the TV show The Fugitive. Was I being signaled that Melvin Dobro is a fugitive? You know. Oh my God, I can't remember the guy's name. I binged one time on the fugitive stuff. So it could be Melvin Dobro is a fugitive. And, and he didn't want to be found. So another interesting thing, I'll just repeat it once again about the Melvin Dobro thing. I had a channel reading from a psychic lady named Rosemary something. She came to town. I sat in front of her in this room. She went into trance. She had an old partner with her in the room as well. I didn't know anything then about CIA, FBI. This was like 1998 or whatever. I mean, you know, she said she was a trance channel. So I asked her when she was in trance, where's my father? I just want to know where he was. What happened to him? So after 5 minutes of silence, she says, he's in a cave. Cave? I never met this one before. Did she ask around town that I used to live in a cave too? Or whatever. She said the word cave. I'm like, oh fuck. Also, in the 80s, I had another channel reading from Jane Martin who channeled the 5 beings from the Pleiades called Calvin. Same question asked. What's up with my father? Where is he? Calvin was quiet, Jane Martin, with her eyes shut, in the room with the reading. She said, he does not give galactic spiritual permission for me to know. Basically, she says there's a block there. In other words, if you try to remote view somebody and you can't, there's a conscious block there from the other person. So that's what I was told, is that he does not give, what the fucking word is it, when he doesn't give permission, you know, subconsciously, whatever, to be found. Now, what does that mean? You know, he could be in a secret project and there's actually a real block on him. And then Calvin asked me, why do you want to know? And I says to her, well, I have a feeling that I might be the Comanche grandfather incarnated. And in case I never find him and find the lineage thing, I just wonder, you know, if that'll come up. And anyway, at that time, Calvin said, yeah, that was probably the case, because years ago I had this hunch that the Comanche grandfather is me now. It's only a couple generations, whatever. But, you know, who knows, especially if they genetically engineer me to be more aligned with the Jewish side of the family. Isn't this boring? And that's why this is for adoptees only, and you're rambling on 37 minutes. So anyway, hey, what else is there to do today? Plenty. I'm outside, you know what? Where I live, it's full of sage. I mean, there's so much sage. So I'm going out collecting sage and making sage bundles, which I noticed downtown in the store. The sage bundles are selling for fucking, $10, whatever. So I'm going to go make some extra money, make sage bundles, wrap them up, and then I'll have those to sell later on. Also, I'm public again. I went downtown yesterday. There's a whole new, if anybody listening goes to Bisbee, Arizona, I might as well say who I am. At 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon, go to Main Street and you'll hear drumming. So anyway, I went down after 5 years. I have not been in the scene because of drama. Now there's all these new people, and there's an art gallery there. And there's people with their fucking cameras, excuse me. But everywhere I go, I'm going to have to cover my face because they're advertising on Facebook about this drum thing. And so they're going to be playing in the park. Now the thing is, I don't want to play music with people that I find, if anyone I sense is affiliated with demonic bullshit, I don't want to play drums with them. I'll get up and politely leave the circle or whatever. However, my shekere, so I ran into people I haven't seen in 40 years that just moved back here, and I haven't drummed in so long, man. My hands are just... So it's like, oh boy, I get to play music again. So anyway, it'll move into other things where I can go downtown now and play and bring out the shikaries and sell them and teach again. I met a lady that's teaching, and she's saying with just African rhythms because our friend. So anyway, I'm publicizing who I am and all that, because now I'm not going to just sit around all day online, and go back downtown and reunite with the percussion community down there. That's not my only first love or anything. As I was saying before, I want an mbira player to move here, so I'm going to make a video in a minute. I know about 15 of the traditional Shona songs. I'm going to make a video where I sample all of it. So anyway, that's what I really like to have as an mbira player, because I can play drums and shikari, that's okay. but I get a little bored, so I want to do something else. And so many people have died that we used to play together, so there's new faces. And then the tourists came in and drum. It's an open thing. You can come in and sit down, and it was so funny because I'm going in there, and this lady was in there teaching and everything, and she's teaching, some like cuckoo and some other traditional songs, and that's all the stuff I learned like 30 years ago. So I just fall right into it, and I love it. I love drumming. It's wonderful, but it's African and we're white. So, I've always been part of the white African drumming situation, which is, it's not my favorite. I'd rather have Africans move here and lead the thing so we can play with them. That's what feels better. But, energy-wise, I can kind of keep up with some of, with the rhythms and stuff. I know that, I know a bunch of stuff that I was taught from the list of Baba Olatunji's work, Drums of Passion. So we learned all those songs in the 90s. So anyway, it's fucked up. It's like I got all these parts. I got this African part, I got this part, I got that part. Nabbity, nabbity, nabbity. And then just being yourself, who you are. What the fuck, So I'm making a freaking video about it because now there's YouTube. So yesterday when I was down there, I just walked by to see what they were doing. Like I went swimming, I went down, oh, let's see what they're doing. And there Mike was playing, and they had these drums. I didn't bring my instruments at all. They had these drums. Man, my hands just went freaking crazy. I was so happy. I'm getting some exercise, kind of coming back to life there. And they're playing all this familiar stuff, but you know what they do? They start playing the drum, boom, boom, and then they start dragging. Okay, that's the hard part. Anyway, all I'm saying is that, looking at this, the Matesky, the music thing with this dude here, so it's in my blood to be a freaking musician. It doesn't matter what I play, but I'm not happy unless I'm playing something, right? And so anyway, I'm just saying, this is it. This is what some of us have to fucking do when they, when they take you away from your family and adopt you out, and you're not supposed to find anything out. This is what the hell happens, right? You spend your whole life tracing your past, right? And now I got to worry about galactic, like what freaking Syrian. Okay, that's a big one. I already know all this stuff. I'll tell you about the red eyes and everything. So I'm just saying this for the future so that if I get any other information in a minute, it'll be interesting because they won't hear this, and I can collaborate with other people tell me about my history with this stuff I already know that I'm not supposed to know, right? I'm spending my whole earth life not only just trying to climb the ladder of fucking success and make something out of myself, but meanwhile deal with the insecurities that come up about it, and seeing how, I was supposed to be a professional. I was supposed to go to the Aspen School of Music, and follow the John Denver path, because John Denver was who I met with his wife Annie, and he's the one that received the demo tapes that were made at Cinema Associates in 1973. So John Denver was going to be my link into the thingy dude, right? By the way, John Denver and his wife chain smoked the whole meeting that we had with my mother. Okay, John Denver chain smoked cigarettes. Anybody know that? Imagine how he would have been a Marlboro man if the public knew John Denver was a chain smoker. I don't think anyone ever saw him on film smoking cigarettes. But he sat next to me on my right, John Denver, and then his wife Annie on the other side while they're having this big meeting with me, 15, 16 years old, being introduced to him. And then the demo tape was made and sent to his New York office. So I really want to, express my gratitude also that in the adoption process, somebody, had their mind, like I wasn't just a waif. So they tried to keep me in the music industry, and I appreciate that, I really do. However, you know where it was headed, right? So I'm only going to play good angelic type music with the good people of Earth. I'm not going to go into the Hollywood goddamn pedophile shit. So that's why I left, because I was already being pimped out to Jimmy Roden, the director who was fucking doing porn, you know what I mean? I wasn't going to go there. Sorry. So that's why I left. I broke the chain of following the command. Okay. Anyway, I guess that's entertaining. 45 minutes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. If you're kind of busy, then you see me. I guess I have to be a public figure, because if you play music in public, that's it. I've done that before, and everything. But now I want a person to move here that plays traditional Shona and Bira, so we can represent the music really well. You'll play the two parts instead of me soloing. It's a pain in the ass to go to town and solo as an imbuter player, especially if people come by and they hear the music, they think I made it up, and then I have to pause and stop and answer all these questions. If I have an African here playing imbuter music and he can sing in Shona, and I could play next to him, that would be great. Then I'll know where the music's from. But when a white girl's playing it, it looks weird. Okay, it's always looked weird, even though I'm a good player. I'm just saying. Okay, now you got the profile. Now there's no secrets, so I'm the one that doesn't like secrets. So here, I've just revealed the secrets. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And who knows, you know, maybe there's a Matot out there. Looky here. Francis Van Norman. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.